Good evening, everyone. It is 6:01 p.m. on the 28th of October, 2025. Calling to order the City of Franklin Finance Committee meeting. Madam Director, would you please take the roll?
Sure. Alderman Pecorelli.
Here.
Alderwoman Day. Here. Alderman Craig.
Here.
Dennis is excused. John Howard is absent. Mira Kresovic.
Here.
And Fascia. Here.
Very good. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Citizen comment period. Any citizen wishing to speak?
Yes.
Thank you, Alderman Craig.
A long time since I've gone with the Finance Committee. Tom Taylor, 7014 Elroy Court. Actually, I was looking forward to seeing Dennis tonight because I used to be the chair and he was the vice chair many years ago of the Finance Committee. I'm here tonight to talk about a couple things. One is I listened to the recording of, I think it was October 7th, 2025 meeting of the Finance Committee where Paul Ratzenberger appeared before you. And I have to tell you, your speaker system is very, very hard to hear the recordings. But I thought what I had heard, and you can correct me, is that Paul came down and was saying he was trying to help you or make some, advise you on some things that you might do. And I thought he said because of your fiscal, I'll put it in my words, dilemma. And he said, well, you could lay off 3 police officers. You could lay off 2 firefighters. You could lay off a public works person, and that would take you, And then he talked about 2 of the TIF districts, but it was very hard to hear. But what I think I got through the interference was that I think he was recommending that you do, the city does what the school district did, and that was to take out a loan and basically buy the TIF district or buy up debt. So it was very difficult. But for Paul, who I also hired at one time, for him to come in here and to say that, bells and whistles and alarms went off in my head because Paul knows what he's doing. He really, really knows what he's doing. And he's got the degrees and everything to back it up, and then some, and then some, and then some. And on top of that, he's a good guy, which is, Mr. Howard, how are you? And so I have come down and I've spoke to the Common Council on occasion. And as a citizen of Franklin, I am concerned about the finances. And I'm also concerned about the amount of TIF districts that are being proposed. Now, I don't know that Costco has been promised a TIF district, but it would not surprise me at all that that is one of the things. And, Oak Creek's got TIF districts everywhere. And they seem to be okay, although I know friends down there that have had their taxes raised 3 times in the last 10 years. So, once you do the TIF district, the money is, for the most part, is locked up for about 27 years. So it doesn't really help, like the chief back here, getting to fires or getting 911 calls in a timely manner. And then on top of it, you're adding an additional, a pretty big workload on a workload that Chief Remington wrote a report about, saying that he was missing or needed 9 more firefighters just to handle what's going on in the city. So you add Costco, and I love Costco. I'm a member of Costco and all that stuff. I'm not quite sure I believe that it should be in that location, but it's going to add another workload to your fire, police, health department. I think Courtney probably knows a little bit about that. and to the city in general. And so, I don't know, when I was the mayor, we did Northwestern Mutual, and I don't really know exactly what the revenue is coming in, but it is substantial. And the only way that we would have ever landed NML was to do a TIF district. In fact, I was competing against 7 states at that time to get them in here. And I think it was Nebraska or Iowa was offering them $220 million to come to their town. And then Ascension, Wheaton Franciscan Hospital, we did a TIF there, but there too is that brought something that, well, I don't know that you can measure it in dollars, but for people that live in Franklin, like myself and my wife, if something happened to us and we had a paramedic unit report to our house, trying to get from our house to St. Luke's emergency room with the traffic that's there, good luck getting there alive. And so the intangible with the hospital was that we now have an emergency room that's literally 5 minutes away from everybody in Franklin. And so that too required a TIF district. We did a TIF district, and I think I retired the debt on that for the business park. There were a lot of people who wanted to continue that TIF district. I was not one of them. We made a promise to the people of Franklin that we would do this, we would defer those dollars, and at the end of it, we would return those dollars back to the 5 taxing units in the school district, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm down here tonight because I know that's if I exceeded my 3 minutes, probably like 3 hours, right?
About 5 minutes.
And but I told you, Jason, I'm Irish. I'm coming here because you are the eyes of Franklin, and I know all of you know what you're doing. I know that. I know the treasurer knows what she's doing. I've looked into your past. Yeah. And you're getting to a point of chaos. You're getting to a point of panic. And I'm just going to say this because I negotiated. I don't know if you know this, but I was telling the chief, I negotiated the EMS paramedic contract for the 19 municipalities. I was the chairman of the mayors and village president, and so I know all the chiefs. I know how the fire department stuff works. I don't know how to say this, and I'll end. If people such as myself and others are coming to you, and the chief, Remington, writes this report, says you already are behind with not having 9 firefighters with your existing workload, and somebody doesn't make it to the emergency room, I believe the city is liable. So I know that probably hasn't been brought forward, but that's one of those intangibles that might be a whole lot better to pay now than to have to pay later in a court of law. So it's hey John. Good evening. So that's why I'm here. I'm not a fan of TIF districts. I never have been a fan of TIF districts. And again, what Paul said was you may have to lay off 3 police officers, 2 firefighters, and a person from DPW. To me, that's the alarms and bells and whistles are all going off, and it's going panic, 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 panic. So as a citizen of Franklin, I'm urging you to do your due diligence, to put every TIF district under a microscope and make sure that it's in the best interest of the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
How you doing?
Anyone else wishing to speak at this time? No one? We'll close citizen comment at 6:11 p.m. I'll turn the meeting over to Mr. Howard.
Okay. We have approval of the minutes, September 23rd, 25.
I'll make a motion to approve those.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from September 23rd, 25, and published. All those say favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, September 25th.
I just have one adjustment on the minutes.
For which one?
Let's see, October 1st. It's the sixth final list of recommended changes for common council. Could be Alderman Peccarelli. Been made by,
Oh,
thank you.
Okay, let's take September 25th. Okay, it's been moved. Second.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the minutes from September 25th as published. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm sorry. Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, September 29th, 25.
Motion.
Second, okay. Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from September 29th, 25 as published. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carried. Okay, October 1st.
Motion to approve as corrected.
Moved and seconded to approve the October 1st, 25 minutes as corrected. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Consideration of change in fee disclosure for principal retirement plan statement.
I'll just kick it off with, I'm so sorry, we are John. That's what I thought. We have Brian and John here from Principal, who are our investment advisors, managers, and they're going to go over the new fee summary that was presented in your packet and the recommended change.
So, I'm the relationship manager from Principal. Been working with the city here for, I've been there 19 years, so I've been with them the entire time. John's the investment advisor, independent investment advisor outside of Principal that oversees our meetings and investment decisions, fee decisions, and the reason for this tonight is we've been meeting with Danielle and Kelly to go through a few changes on each of the plans. We have the defined benefit pension plan and we have the money purchase pension plan. And it's more of an administrative move. We're not, in the pension plan, fees are not changing. What we're doing is we're moving to an administrative point of, if you were to start a new plan today, how would you do it from a fee perspective? And you'll probably see, I think you have the things there, the overall fees for the plan when you look at the record keeping fee, the investment advisory fee, the actuarial fees, it's about $73,000. In the plan today, the investments have what's called revenue sharing in them, and that's about a little more than half. And that revenue sharing offsets some of that $73,000 in total costs for the plan. What we're doing is we're removing that revenue sharing and putting in the lowest cost share classes of investments, because Principal is investing those dollars for the future payouts of the retirees. But when we show investment return to the Danielle and her team and committee, is we're not seeing the true investment return of the plan because the fees are coming out of those investments. What we're doing is we're just doing a shift from it. That $73,000 will remain the same. It will just be a fully deducted fee out of plan assets. It doesn't come out of the city's dollars. It comes out of plan assets. So we're just switching administratively, and we need to disclose that. And that's for the defined benefit plan change. So our ask is to move the plan of how you would administer it today, because the plan's been around for a very long time. And if you write a plan today, it's just, this is how you would do the fee structure. And it gives the Principal Financial Advisor Group, those are the folks in our home office that are doing all the investment analysis, choosing the investments, the allocation to meet the required payments in the plan. It gives them the ability to show you what's the true investment return in the plan without having any investment fees offsetting things. Lot there, I just want to, it's an administrative move more than anything. That's for the defined benefit plan.
Any questions?
And we've done this before when I'd say probably last time we did a fee change on the defined benefit plan was like 5 years ago.
I think about, it was 2020 when I was looking it up.
Yeah, when I believe Paul
Paul
was here
was
at the time. Yep, working with Paul. And we did the change, and now we just want to do the change of how you do how plans are written today. Bring it up to speed.
So if there's no questions, then the motion would just be directing the Director of Finance and Treasurer to implement the change in fee disclosure for the municipal plan.
There's a motion. Mr. Beck.
I'll make that motion.
It's been moved. Second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the proposal. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
All right, we'll work on that. The second one for the second plan, this is the money purchase plan. This is the plan. There's not a lot of people in it, but this is one where they are choosing their own investments. They're choosing whether they want to go in stocks, bonds. They meet with John individually, and he works with a lot of retirees as well. This is for a little more of a material change, but we think a change that's better for the participant. Is today in their cash account, they're using a normal money market fund, and they're using two different options: a money market fund and what's called a guaranteed interest account. It's a 2-year account, and that works like a CD. So if they go into money market fund, they're getting whatever the current money market rate is. Today, that's probably about 3.5. It's falling. For about 15 years, it was at 0. The guaranteed interest account is getting roughly about 3.5% to 4%. But if a person chooses that account, it's like a CD. They got to stay in there for 2 years. So, principal, we now have a product that is more flexible. That would replace both of these. It's called the Principal Fixed Income Guaranteed Option. Right now, the yield on it is 4.7%. That yield gets reset every 6 months. The next reset is going to be, I believe, in January, and it's only going to be coming down 5 basis points to 4.65%. Our recommendation through discussions with Danielle and Kelly have been, let's replace the money market fund and that guaranteed interest account with that fixed income option. The nice thing about the fixed income option is a participant doesn't have to use it like a CD. They could be in that fund today. A month from now, if they wanted to move it out into a stock fund or a bond fund, they can move it out with no restriction. Whereas if they're in that guaranteed interest account today, once they choose that, they got to stick in that fund for at least 2 years, and they cannot move the money like a CD. This new option, and the retirement plan companies like ourselves have been creating these to create more flexibility for the participant. So if they don't want to stay in the cash, or they see an opportunity, or they meet with John, and John sees, hey, if we want to change your allocation, they're not stuck in that particular fund. And the nice thing about that fund is with that, we're also, where the assets are in the plan, going to do a fee reduction for the participants. The participants today, the record-keeping fee for that plan is 0.37%, 37 basis points. So assets are around $10 million or so. That's $37,000 a year. They all share in that. It comes out of investment return. That will be lower by about $10,000 to 27 basis points. So not only will they get a more flexibility on their fund choice, if they want to go to cash, they will actually have a lower administrative fee on the plan too. And we think that's important because, again, this plan, the participant does control their own investment. So the recommended change is to combine those two funds, the guaranteed interest account and the money market fund, and utilize the newer fixed income guaranteed option that has that higher rate. The folks that are in the GIC account today, that 2-year GIC, how it'll work is, let's say they got 3 months left in there. When that 3 months is up, it won't renew like a CD does. We will automatically move them to the new fund that has more flexibility. They don't have to make a decision on that. Questions?
Question?
Okay, I'm going to entertain a motion to approve the proposal.
I have one question.
Yeah.
So why is the yield so much higher on?
Yeah, that's fixed income guaranteed option. Yeah, it's an account that's backed by Principal with about $87 million in it. These are common products by Principal, by Voya, all the main record keepers out there. The record keepers make a better spread on those than they would do a money market account, so that's why they also can do that higher yield, and we can offer a lower rate.
Does it have a longer maturity?
There's no maturity. It's a rate reset every 6 months.
But I mean,
based
the
on market.
investments in.
Yeah, they're short term, but the things that we're doing are normally 3 to 7 year. The underlying investment.
But a little higher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
No, good question.
So just a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded to approve the proposal. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
All right, Daniel, I'll work with you over the next couple weeks.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good to see you again.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay. Mayor's recommended.
So in front of you is a packet with an updated memo that I handed out. The updated memo shows a couple updated amounts after further discussion with staff. And then there was one typo, so the overall budget request and need numbers change. So I just recommend that we go off of the updated one that I provided to you, and then the other documents in the packet are just each request sent to myself, the Director of Administration, and the Mayor from each department head that submitted their budget reduction request. So I'm happy to take this however you want. I don't know if we want to just go down each department and kind of see what the 5% looked like and what the request looked like, or if we just wanted to jump right into questions, concerns, and discussion of the overall reduction request.
What's your pleasure? I think we need.
That's fine. How about I just highlight the couple changes,
All right.
and then we can.
Why don't you do
So,
that?
I met with the clerk, and there was just a couple typos. So the office supplies actually should have been reduced by 500, memberships reduced by 300, and conferences reduced by another 500. So her total request was $18,646.
Could I comment on that?
Yeah, of course.
I noticed that election workers were slotted to get an increase. I don't see the need for that. I mean, since we are so stretched.
You mean an increase in pay?
Yes.
I don't believe so.
No?
No.
Okay. Then
They
I read
did.
that wrong.
They did get an increase, I believe, in 2024.
A couple of years ago, they.
Yeah.
Okay.
What does it say? Yeah, I wonder if it's a typo in your mayor's recommended budget.
Maybe because I just
Know
read
that they
it.
got an increase, I believe, in 24. Poll workers did.
Good.
It says page 53, unless I'm reading it wrong.
I don't have my budget book. Go ahead. It just says in 2026, they will receive.
Well, it doesn't say the year, it just says election salaries. $2 an hour increase is included for poll workers, raising regular election worker pay to $12 and chief inspectors to $14.
Okay. Let me verify that, but I'm pretty positive that's what happened in the 24 budget or the 25 budget, so that should not be in there.
Okay. I just think, given the budget is so strapped, and
Can I ask a related question?
Yep.
While you put that up? Aside from that, I know that there is the 2% cost of living adjustment for the non-reps. Are there any other salary increases that are happening outside of that for the non-reps?
You mean like a pink sheet that raises their wages?
Yes.
No.
Okay.
That I'm aware of.
That's not true.
Well, it's not, I know where she's going with this, but there were certain ones that are going, well, I'm
Correct.
saying this
Wait,
is,
what?
well, I'll explain what. So there is no, like, there was questions about different department heads
Yes.
getting extra bonuses. That's what I'm referring
So there have been, and I can just back off of that. So in this budget, it reflects, my bad, to answer your question, Mira. In the 26 budget, yes, poll workers are at $12, chief inspectors at $14. So we can take that out because that was an increase that they received in a previous year.
okay.
Here, Alderwoman. There has been conversations with administration about some department heads potentially moving either up a level or getting some sort of certification that may allow them to get a pay increase. So those changes are implemented in this budget as a placeholder, but they're not guaranteed until it goes through all the proper channels of personnel, council, all of that. So we just accounted for it in here, anticipating that it may happen sometime in 2026.
So, so kind of where I'm going with this is that, well, twofold. I'm not referring to the discretionary piece that you have, I'm not talking, because that's also already accounted for. And what I was referring to is over the last couple of years, there have been sort of, I'm going to call them unplanned, things that have come through that have been significant, like bumps and whatnot. So if they're in here and planned and they're already accounted for in the numbers, that's one thing. But I'm talking about like if like anticipated, like you don't want to put it in here because it doesn't look great, but we're going to do it later after the fact and just make a budget amendment. That's what I'm trying to avoid because we had a lot of those in the last couple of years. You can make the argument one way or the other if they were warranted at the time or the amount that was done. But the bottom line piece, the salary, a lot of times, because municipalities are so strapped that it's not always that you can offer more in dollars on your salary. You have to find creative ways to find recruitment and retention. And it seems like the last maybe 4 or 5 years, it's been more an aim to give people monetary compensation, which we just don't have it. And I understand the retention piece of that, but we need to really kind of tighten the purse strings on those kind of like sweeping things that are like not planned in the budget. So I would say it sounds like we did it right this year, that it was potentially anticipated, so it was put in. So I'd just like to encourage that that's the plan moving forward rather than have these sweeping, changes in midstream that may have, caused us to be a little short in some cases.
Yeah, and I can say, again, Kelly and I have talked about that and have come up with a sample policy to put forward about no mid-year increases. It needs, if you want, one of your employees to get an increase or whatever, it needs to be implemented at budget time and started on January 1st. And so one of the recommendations that I did put in here was freeze all mid-year raises for 2026.
Yeah,
so that was,
you're trying to figure
you're
out
on the same
exactly
wavelength.
what's happening. Yes, okay.
So that's why. So yes,
Thank you.
other than the 2% and those couple that I mentioned that were
Okay.
minimal, no, there should be no anticipated increase throughout the year.
Great, thank you.
I don't know specifically what Alderwoman Day was speaking of, but I'm just thinking I understand that, you know, money's tight and people want raises, people want to be, but how do you justify, how does a department head justify giving themselves an increase and not the people that work beneath them? To me, I think that's unethical. And yeah, I didn't know that you could give mid-year increases. They should only happen at one time. I don't know about other people's experiences, but pretty much every business I've worked for or with has only done them annually.
And I agree to your point. And like there was the question right away with the former director of administration that was given a $20,000 increase in the last 4 pay periods in 2022. And that never came to council because it was $4,000 or $5,000 checks. And that's the kind of things that I don't do, I will never do. And that's that transparency component is, well, why was it done that way? What was done that way to avoid council? It was that way to avoid, you know, having that whole process done with budget and how that went. So hopefully when I get fact checked tomorrow and somebody contacts Danielle, she can explain how that was uncovered perhaps and maybe how that was dealt with and the fortunate is I hated it. I mean, I didn't know about it until after I got in office as mayor, but that's something that we don't play the games, so the games are not there. They're in the budget.
So if I may ask a clarifying question, Mayor, am I to understand that there's now a policy in place where that will no longer happen? Or will there be a policy in place where that will no longer happen?
There's no policy, but everything is right there.
But you just said that there is a mechanism in play that was used previously to give small increments without.
I don't know what mechanism was in play, but he did it. And as you're writing, make sure that you check some things with Danielle because those were the things that we uncovered. And how does that happen? I don't know how it happens, but it did. So what is there a policy or mechanism? I'm just telling you the example of what I don't do.
Could we clarify and create a policy or mechanism that ensures that that cannot happen again?
Well, the only thing that's in right now is that anything that's $5,000 or over has got to come in front for some sort of review.
Well, I don't understand why there's that $5,000 cap. Do you know what I mean?
And that's a little different. That's more on invoices. I think what we're trying to accomplish here is there's no set policy that eliminates the ability to allow any department head or mayor to
Give a bonus.
give a wage increase, right? Throughout the year, not just at budget time,
Right.
throughout the year. There is the ability to give up to, 7.5% or 5%? The
I know
mayor-
it's a 5%.
Mayor has the ability to sign off at any time, being fiscally responsible for up to 5% without it going in front of the council to any employee.
And what I'm asking is anyone willing to change that?
Oh, I know,
That's what I'm asking.
Well, I have got no problem making it more
Like I said,
stringent and more
Yes.
difficult. I have no problem with that at all. None whatsoever. I don't
So
care.
that just can't happen.
Like I said, there is a sample that Kelly has put together and I've
Okay.
briefly reviewed.
Will
So
we see that at the next meeting at all? Or no?
I can make sure that that's at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. Other question? Highlights?
So we covered the clerks. Another highlight was of the police department. I had the wrong amount under total deduction needed. That should have included the dispatch department and it didn't, so I just updated that number. The page 3 engineering typo, it should have been freeze 1 tech and 0.5 FTE admin assistant instead of 1.5 FTE, so I adjusted that. It didn't affect the numbers at all, it was just that one typo. there was a typo in the Highway and Parks Department. The benefits piece should have been at $50,086 instead of at $32,663, which brought the total reduction back up to the $187,254. And then final at the bottom, so your overall total budget reduction that was needed from all the department heads at 5% was $1.58 million. What was requested and given to us from the departments totaled $1.28 million. So overall, the total revenues coming into the general fund was the $32.4 million, and total expenditures minus the contingency was $31.9. So we have about $550,000 in excess revenue to discuss putting back into the budget.
Can I just say one thing
Yep.
for the electeds in here? So when it came up for reductions, because we were part of that. And I'm sharing this with everybody in the room that doesn't know this, but the last time a wage increase was given to the electeds was 1998. So 1998, think of where everybody was in 1998. That's the last time mayor or alders got a raise. So when it came down to what are we going to cut, we can't cut anymore. So we were not going to be proposing that type of a cut or restriction. But I just want to, when people are asking, well, you guys get paid so much, well, we don't. And the last time it was touched was 1998.
Point of clarification, I do believe that the council is paid minimally for the work that they do. It's just, I was made aware of, I believe, what you were referencing, and in a conversation that, and it was, the umbrella of the conversation was, it was extremely unethical to do that. Maybe not wrong, but it was unethical to do that. And I guess
It was wrong and unethical.
so my request, I guess, is just to eliminate that possibility of ever happening again very clearly. You know what I mean? Because sometimes,
Agreed.
like when you say, stay between the lines, then somebody else comes along and says, well, you didn't say I couldn't go outside the lines. You just requested that I stay within them. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
To make it very clear that this cannot happen again.
And to Danielle's point, Kelly did start
Yep.
drafting a document that would
Yeah.
prevent that from happening, because that is absolutely dirty pool, and that shouldn't have ever happened.
Few questions. So I get that we, accomplished our task here, but before we throw the baby out with the bathwater and give all the excess back to everybody, I want to talk about a few other things, and some of these things are peanuts, and it's not going to make a mountain of difference, but I think it's things to start thinking about. So we talked a little bit, I believe, in one of these meetings, I don't know if it was the last one or the one before, about some of the more inefficiencies, I guess, that happen, whether it's just processes haven't been updated for a while, or kind of we've always done it that way and everyone's comfortable and nobody likes change. But a few things that I've seen that have gone on that kind of always made me scratch my head when I was here. Some of the like siloed working that we have. So we've brought up a couple of times things like the language line, and there's at least 2 different departments that have it. So we should consolidate things like that. There should be conversations about contracts that people are signing with external vendors, that there should just be the one, you don't need multiple. Things like the printer. Not everybody needs their own high-tech printer. You could have a couple on each floor and use like a login where, you send it there and you go and you scan your ID card that you have now, or you type in your ID number and then it prints for you. Not everybody needs their own printer, paper, toner, all of that. I mean, it seems wasteful and inefficient to have all of these things, because then it's like one breaks down, you have a service call, then that one breaks down, you have a service call. There's little things like that. I think maybe when we talk about capital improvements, people generally think about big ticket items like vehicles and things along that nature. But I think like cosmetic changes, they might need to start thinking about that on like a 5-year rotation. Like when's the last time this area's been painted, or the floor's been changed, or the carpet's been done, or the wallpaper, and have it on a schedule so that not everybody comes up and says, hey, it's been 35 years since we've had new carpet. You know, just things like that, because then you don't have 4 departments at one time needing carpet. Just things along those lines. But then also the newsletter. Does it really need to be printed and mailed to every single mailbox? I understand that not everybody has internet capabilities and not everybody is tech savvy. And I think there's mechanisms to compensate for that. There's the library, there's City Hall, there's senior dining here, there's senior dining at the bowling alley. There's many venues where there could be paper copies, you know, several hundred, you know, made. But the money that we pay to the integration center to put them together, the money we pay on postage to send them, the time it takes for Lisa to pull it together, and the lag time between needing things to go in there and when it actually comes out, they're not timely. So if you reduce the amount that have to be printed, you could probably turn it over faster for the print version of it. So there's things I'm just like, we could be more efficient. And I'm not going to go so far as to say Franklin needs its own Doge, but we kind of need our own Doge. We need somebody that's kind of like looking at all these weird little things that have been going on for so long that it's just not running well. Processes can be made smoother and faster, and by then you kind of just intrinsically then start saving money once some of those things happen organically. But then my main thing that I wanted to bring up, and I know it's going to be unpopular, but I'm going to go there anyway. So I noticed that there were a couple of departments that chose, for one reason or another, to not participate in reducing these. Everybody, I'm sure every department feels, I mean, I could look at Danielle's department head, I could look at chief over there, I can look at the clerk. I'm sure you all feel like everything in your budget is mandatory. You need it. You need those dollars. Everyone thinks that. So to have a memo that says, we need it, you can't take it from us. Well, that's everybody. That's not necessarily acceptable. And then the other one not only didn't reduce, they increased by $8,000. I was like, oh, that's the opposite of what was asked of you by the council. Like you increased. So I would just like to know if there's been any discussions with those 2 departments on why or how everybody else had to scrape, pinch, beg, and borrow to get down to be as lean as physically possible, and those 2 departments don't have to do anything because now we have a $500,000 surplus. I don't get why that's okay.
It's not. And if it were anybody in my family that were looking at this, I know for a fact it would be a mandatory reduction. I don't care what.
And so I believe the thought was
and there would be a sanction of that department head.
Well, I was looking back at the minutes and I kind of circled it because I believe what the intent of the motion was to give the heads of the departments those 2 weeks to kind of look at things and make the decisions so that somebody wouldn't make it for them and pick something that they really, really did need. And they chose not to do that. So I still feel like it's very ironically inequitable for to spout equity and then not actually do the thing to make you the same as everybody else. I find that ironic. But if 25,000 is what's needed, for example, from administration, it's a really easy $25,000 line that's only been in the budget for about a year that I honestly don't think we need, and I don't think it's being used appropriately. And I think you zero out the other professional services line for the next calendar year. I don't think that is a position that is needed. I don't see the value add to the city. I have a ton of examples where I'm not entirely certain why the person is still actually working here with some of the gaps and mistakes that have been made. But to me, that's an easy solve. And for Muni-Cord, obviously I go back to the cosmetic thing. I get it. Carpet is old, doesn't look great, and I know that that's not necessarily operational, but it's some money to come back. It was an easy thing. It doesn't take anything out of your budget. It doesn't take anything away from your operation. Still function the way that you did before. You just don't get carpet this year. So to me, it's there's easy things here, and they just chose not to do it, and that's really disappointing.
I have to agree.
To be fair, we did already increase the court budget by $6,000 interface. But I felt a little slap in the face myself. But to your point of if conversations have been had, for court, I know the mayor can speak to, he did talk to the judge, and how did that go?
Well, it went well. I understood, I talked to her yesterday again, and one of the things that they're looking at is how do you cut the court area? And when you have a slight revenue base area with citations, and you look at how can you streamline, and that is one of the few examples, and I will circle back around to your first point. So the part with the court, though, was, well, they have to do a fee increase. Okay? Nothing has been touched. The ordinances haven't been touched. Parking hasn't been touched since 2013. So when you look at that, you're like, well, for 12 years, there's been no increase. And that was the thing, is like, okay, well, the citations issued has been pretty steady. So it's not like they're out doing anything crazy or they're not doing their job. So there's a in between there that's usually right here. So what made the most sense is to bring to council a fee increase request, and basing the fact that it's been since 2013 will make up a chunk of that if we look at the flat line, which has been the constant over the trend of the 3 years or the pattern over the 5. So that's how to address that. And the judge's big thing was that interface, because that interface allows them to work more efficiently, streamline staffing, that end of it, opposed to the officer writing the citation, at the time it gets into the court system and out of the court system, that's the interface that's needed. So that was priority one. So that, and the fact that, to the Alderwoman's point, that carpet is probably 25 years old and is in need. And so that's where those things that you look at is how can that happen? Because it's not just the courtroom. It's used for a whole bunch of other things that the community comes to enjoy. Is there a lot that's also a showcase for us? How do we look? When you look at it right now, it's tore up. It's got those old stupid arrows from COVID, given the distancing thing, but you can't pull them up because they're with this super strong Gorilla Glue tape that it will take up the entire carpet. So how do we deal with that? So I like to see, because that is one of our showcase gems, somehow the carpet be done, but the judge and her team are going to be presenting their up fees. And I know I've said this before, a citation written for parking, the city or municipality gets all that money. And then there's a breakdown for then, let's say, the ordinance violations, if it's something like possession of marijuana, disorderly conduct, some theft, something like that, there's a percentage that's like 90%, and then your speeding citations is like 10%. So, because the state gets a whole chunk of that. But anyway, that's the thought of that for the court. And to your point about the person that does the PR work, if there's things you don't like about it, it should be brought up, I think, however you want to do it, to clarify roles, responsibilities for what we do or what she is doing. If you're not happy with it, then that's something that I think before you just one of your points is throw the baby out with the bathwater. I don't mind that term. And you look at how Oak Creek does it, I have no idea, but they've got 7 FTEs that are their PR, marketing, and community advancement people. 7 full-timers. So for us to have somebody work part-time in that capacity, perhaps you adjust it, but I don't think you eliminate. Or maybe it's converted to an hourly that you categorize what you want this person to do, whether it's ribbon cuttings and press releases and that type of thing, and then you say here's where you're at, and then they submit a monthly invoice. I'm just offering up things that we because right now if you say, well, then who does it? Well, I appreciate I'm here full-time plus, but I don't think I want to be doing the press releases, but yeah, we want somebody that's professional to do them. So I think we're getting a deal, but perhaps it could be restructured, which would be a reasonable outcome.
As a follow-up to that, do you know any other reason why, or a reason why that particular department chose not to look at any reduction in operating costs?
I don't know, and I would ask Kelly to, respond
I understand
to that.
I understand that she's not here, so it's
Right.
a little bit unfair to ask that now, but
Right.
we have it before she left, unfortunately.
And to look at Kelly's budget and to dig into the administrative budget and where can you cut, because considering it's Lisa and Kelly. And where are you going with that? And Lisa Huning, Kelly, but one part, Alderwoman, that I agree with you 100+% is our newsletter, because that takes Lisa's time so much. And then when I saw what was produced by the health department, it was unbelievable. The product that was put out by them, it was like, this is like looking at a magazine. And it was just, really done well. And Lauren was like, yeah, this is how we do it. It's quick. That's what we're looking at over here is the early 1980s. And it looks like it. And it's that technology. It's antiquated. However, it is widely viewed, liked, looked at by a large percentage of our citizens in the city, especially senior citizens. They read it, they love it. So there's got to be a balance, and we've had this conversation, not you and I, I'm pointing at you, this conversation has been had, Kelly and I, because Kelly's a big proponent of changing it, perhaps stop mailing it, period, especially with a stamp right now, I believe is 78 cents, which is insane, that we would just have them printed up and dropped off at different senior areas as well as here, and we leave it like that. But we also move to the other good point that I love is, I don't like it, but it's true, is the lag time. So we are already putting in by Friday, the December, we're going to have 3 business openings next month, 3 ribbon cutting grand opening dealios that aren't going to be part of that newsletter because it's got to be in now, but that they're all in November and they're all before November 15th. So I don't know why it takes so long for that thing. So yeah, there's that. Also, to your great point, you brought your A game tonight, by the way, is the copiers. Absolutely. We've got one central copier. Make that the wonderful copier, best copier you can find in the world with an AI person that talks to you, but then get rid of everyone else's because they don't need them. They can go right there. That's your primary. So no, these are all things that can be implemented, I think, pretty simply. I don't think it's going to take, act of the council to go crazy, but I'll yield it.
Like I said, some of these are peanuts, but over time, the peanuts add up, and
They become a bushel.
And to piggyback on that, as a resident, I'm looking at, police, fire, city clerk, all making cuts. Those are really essential, and that's kind of the reason for taxes, in my opinion. Whatever that's worth. I don't know, to me, not taking those cuts, like decorating. Okay, you're saying the carpet's really old. The carpet in my house is over 50 years old. Okay.
Is it orange shag?
I still have some of that. and the avocado green,
Oh,
real short.
awesome. Mustard yellow.
The
Awesome.
orange shag has a little bit of burgundy in it too.
But this is bad. This is in bad shape though. That's I'm only pointing that out. If it was great condition, but this, like I was telling Courtney, because I believe during COVID, Courtney was the director of the health department.
But
So they put this tape down, which if you pull it up, the whole carpet.
Bob used some industrial stuff.
But in all honesty,
Somebody
there's
did.
been a lot of other decorating that's been going on in municipal buildings. Will that stop? Remodeling or redecorating. Is that gonna slow down or stop? I mean, if you're talking
This is
about
budgeted.
wallpapering and painting versus having an employee that's critical for public safety,
Mhm.
as a resident, I value that public safety factor more than
I believe we
wallpaper.
all do, Mira.
Okay.
So where are we on this whole?
Alderman Pecorelli.
Well,
is
so,
patient.
so let's go back to the newsletter for a second. What does the newsletter actually cost us when we do every quarter?
Glad you're sitting down.
I know, put me on the spot, I know this.
And while you're looking that
Top of
up,
my head.
I'll jump over to the
This
printer
has
one.
been discussed, Kelly and I have talked about it in length, about coming up with costs. Lisa put a whole thing together at my desk.
So on the printer avenue, I don't disagree with you on printing costs. There is a balance in there. Maybe getting to one might be a little too far because as you get into more the bigger ones, the pricing goes up on them. The other part is you end up with bottlenecks because if everybody's trying to print at the same time, can't. So you got to balance that a little bit. You got to look at that. And the last thing is the badge stuff and everything, like the follow you printing kind of stuff. There's an IT component and there's costs associated with that.
Yep.
So you just got to balance that out too. So I just want to point those out that it's not a net gain just from just swapping those things out.
And if you only have one, what happens if it goes
If it
down?
breaks or anything like that, yeah. So you kind of you got to be careful and you got to look at where your high printing comes from. So like
Clerk's office.
I'm just gonna say I'm guessing the clerk's office. So you may need one that's more dedicated there, and then you have a more shared one, and that's the backup or something. You might have to do something like
Right.
that.
And printing council packets. I don't know that we.
Oh my gosh.
Well, before you guys all get excited, I know this. Yeah, that's been the same thing with Plan Commission. So like the school board, they issued laptops. So all the school board members have laptops to go through things. There's certain things that I think I mean I like having it in print, but there's certain things like when we have legal, I don't need Jesse giving you a binder to review, which nobody's going to read. Because Alderman Wilhelm, once she retired, that was the last person that read every single word that he gave you 1,000 pages over the weekend. We just want the highlights, the cliff notes. What do we need to know, city attorney? I don't want 9 case. No, just tell us. So that's how you should be seeing it streamlined now. Because I started the last time I saw that, I couldn't believe what he did. So we're changing that. So hopefully you're seeing your packets reduced. But sometimes, to the clerk's point, we have to include. It's got to be inclusive because it's got to be online. Mm-hmm. So when somebody comes and is not happy with what they see or hear, they can at least look and get what's in front of them, so they know the city's not hiding anything. Here's your proof, and the only way we can do it is putting it online. So there is a balance.
So the newsletter, we do get a portion of it offset by the school district.
Okay.
They do pay a portion. I'll just say last year out of 29,000, they paid about 6,000. So it was about $23,000 in newsletter expenses for 2024. That's
year.
printing and postage.
I thought it was higher than that. Okay.
That was 24 though. I mean, postage has gone up in
Yeah.
25. Yeah, but it's quarterly.
No,
but
but
yeah,
I'm just saying
yeah.
like the
Yep.
breakdown too.
Over the years that you a little bit that came out.
Wasn't me.
It was thicker years ago. I think we've condensed to save money here and there.
I didn't know the school pays. That's excellent.
It's a big portion. Correct. So again, looking at the we don't have any more questions, so to say, on this. I put together some discussion points for each department on page 5. Happy to go through them, then we can comment on them. The municipal court, like I stated, there was no reduction response. We did include it was $5,800 interface in their budget. If we wanted to have a discussion, as the mayor said, we have requested them to increase their fees, and so my recommendation would be to give them a deadline to get that to council so that it can be implemented as soon as possible. And then also the debate is they have significantly increased their revenue in 2025 versus previous years. So should that be taken into account when they talk about a reduction? And so my comment to that is just in any department, at any time a department increases their fees, it goes to the overall general fund. It's everybody included, not just that specific department. So I try to remind all the department heads that we appreciate you increasing your fees or finding new revenue sources, streams, but it's to help the overall city as a whole and not just specifically for departments. So we don't increase department budget by the amount of revenue that they increase the budget by. So,
Yeah, because you have a lot of, you have departments that don't have a fee structure associated with
Right.
them. So
Myself,
that puts it, right, that puts
administration.
them at a disadvantage, so yeah.
so it's just overall, we get supplemental aid, we get state aid, we get all of these different revenue sources that go in tax levy, supposed to pay for all of the operations.
Is there a deadline to be had for the increase of fees?
That's what my one recommendation was, that we input some sort of date for the entire fee structure and then the court fees as well.
Okay. Is it
So
so,
there's not one.
so we don't have to like say, this has to be done before January 1st or before,
We can set the time.
Okay,
I
'cause
would,
we wanna
I would
implement it.
suggest we
Yeah, we want it
rush
done
on it
as
because
soon
we
as
want it
possible.
implemented
Yeah,
by
exactly.
January 1. So I know that we had some conversations with the inspections department, Kelly and I did, and they have actually been so kind to take over the entire fees schedule for the most part and look at the overall, all the fees that the city has. They've already done a comparison with a lot of the inspection department municipalities locally in the inspections department and came up with their whole spreadsheet, and we discussed at what point that was last updated and what a CPI increase would be now. And so intent is to increase the building department fees by that specific CPI increase from 2022 till 2025. But he was going to go, or they were going to go through all of the fees, see when they were last updated, put an entire fee schedule together and try and get that done before the end of the year. So that took that off of mining.
So what about the park?
That is included in that overall
Okay,
structure that it's every fee that the
Wonderful.
city charges.
oh, wonderful.
focusing on a lot of non-resident.
Yes,
And it'll depend. Obviously, there's some fees that are mandated by the state that can't be increased. One of the animal license is one of them. That's set by Milwaukee. We can't increase that. But some of the ones that we are and have the ability to do, we are going to.
And perhaps also to add to this, also looking at ones that aren't ever used. I'm probably, and I'm 57, one of the last ones that actually had registered their bicycle in the city of Franklin.
Hey, was
Because
this
I had
year?
to, because my dad was a cop, so I had to go get the little Franklin tag, and that's probably back in the early 80s. Things like that, why are they even on there? Because nobody does that. I mean,
You don't want our police out there running down bicyclists?
That'll increase fees.
I think what did we
Forfeitures.
collect?
how about
10 bucks this
the
year?
electric ones that are riding along?
So go ahead, Shirley.
Just a question regarding the food office. I met with a couple of the aldermen. The ones that we state law.
If these two were there.
But, so I trying to get that together. We've already worked.
So can you send that to myself and
I don't know.
inspection?
I'm-
Or whenever you're done. Yeah, no, that's fine. Whenever you're, just so that he can, because I think what we're trying to do is other municipalities, Pewaukee, Oak Creek, they have just one resolution or one document that every single fee in the city or village is on one fee schedule. We don't have that. And so he's working on that piece, so
Yeah, I
just
just
whatever
have to
fees
change
we
that
have.
word. I talked to Jesse about it. I just,
One of the columns I've asked him to put in there that I found on another one, I essentially just gave him a couple different examples that I liked. That was very easy, and it's it references which chapter, which section in our municipal code that applies to what the description is, what the fee is, what the current amount is, which would be effective 1/1/26, and then the last year it was updated. So.
did go here. Sat down.
Okay, cool. So, there's no other questions, we can move on from the court, I know we kind of talked about that already. The clerks and elections, they reduced their budget relatively close to the request. I know that there had been some comments about me putting in the memo unrealistic next to the filing fees and background checks. So I just wanted to kind of clarify what I meant by that. At first, the thought was to reduce those to zero. And the thought behind that was, well, we are offsetting the expense by collecting revenue from operator license or business license for those background checks, and same with the filing. We have to record specific register of deeds, and then those invoices for that amount minus any admin time, which we can discuss that as well, goes out to the businesses and it comes back. However, from an accounting perspective, my unrealistic comment was we can't just reduce those to zero because those essentially are invoices going out and those checks need to be cut in, so there has to be some appropriation. We shouldn't be putting that revenue back into the expense account, kind of net it out to a zero, which I think was the original thought process. So I am suggesting that we put those back in, even though we know we charge for them. We have to put some amount in there so we can cut those checks. So that's what I meant by that. I don't know if everybody knew that we were getting, some revenue back on those, but I didn't want to just put them out to zero because that's not how the accounting works. So just wanted to mention that, and then obviously mention it's really hard to cut things out of the election budget similar to everybody else. Just that elections are unknown. We don't know how they're going to turn out. We estimate how many elections we're going to have. Sometimes we don't. We don't know how many people are going to come, what the expenses look like, and unfortunately, that's one of the departments that it's hard to cut because you have to purchase those things. If there's no budget, we are still going to have to purchase them. You can't just not run an election. So just wanted to clarify that too, that the clerk tried to make as best cuts as she could, but if there are circumstances that come up, she will have to some of that funding. Any questions on that one? No. IT, Jim did a really good job on reducing his IT budget. One thing I just did want to mention, because I know we brought it up in the past, was the GIS. Kelly and I did meet with Todd, who has been our GIS specialist for, I think he's 5 years, 1990, first year here. He's now officially retiring. That being said, the other GIS specialist, Brian, who has been here essentially the same amount of time, will be taking over. Even though there is a little reduction in the workload and an increase in cost, a lot of that has to do with the efficiencies and all of the technology and software that Brian has built to allow him to do the job at a more efficient rate. With the additional, we'll call it managerial duties, that is why the fee increased. However, overall, it's the overall contract is still less than what the 2025 budget was. So we kept it. So you'll see, it looks like a reduction here because it's cheaper than it was before, but to the point that we only have one GIS specialist now instead of. So any questions on that one? Okay, finance, I have chosen to freeze hiring the accountant for 2 months. Sarah has been working very well as the interim deputy treasurer. And we do know that Tom will be retiring right around the end of 2026. If not, I might be able to keep him till the beginning of 27. So the need is not there right this moment to go hire Sarah's replacement. And then just some of the unnecessary spending. I believe bank fees was one of them, and a couple other ones to get me down my 5%. Legal, there was no response from legal. There have been some discussions around potentially moving from a contractual attorney to a staff attorney. There was already a significant reduction in the mayor's recommended budget versus the department request budget. I'm reducing some of the contractual time in lieu of having the staff attorney. However, we don't have one in the works yet, so we're not really certain how that's going to go. So I just kind of left that one as it is for 2026. Municipal buildings. I'd like you to go to your packet. The mayor and I briefly talked about this today, and I didn't want to throw a dollar amount in there without having a discussion with finance committee on the proposal.
Is that Joe?
Huh?
Is that Joe or?
Yes. I don't have a page. But it says municipal building department proposal. It's like halfway through. So I hope you had time to read it. So overall, the reduction that we've asked for the municipal buildings department was $14,020. Joe recommended a couple of different scenarios. One of them being the aquarium maintenance right out here, reducing that to every other month, which would approximately save $600. So I did put that. A potential reduction in landscape materials and expendable tools. To be honest, I'm not sure what discussion he had with administration, but apparently there was a discussion that would potentially save $800 on those two. And then for rugs, scheduling those out further intervals in the summer months versus the winter months, that can save some money as well. And then the final reduction piece that we wanted to discuss was the overall proposal of suspending the dust-free contract, which is the contract for the cleaners of City Hall, and having Joe perform the duties himself. With that, he would expect a $7 an hour raise, and then have some money left over to put in the overtime budget for when he is off, and any additional operating savings with the last $1,000 that he has. So, Mayor, I don't know if you want to touch on our discussion from earlier on your thoughts around that.
Sure. So many of you just right now heard the $7 an hour raise. That's a fact. So a $7 an hour raise. I know Joe. He does a great job. I've known him since middle school. He comes with an outstanding work ethic. He has cleaned up a lot of City Hall. He takes the direction that I share in, is get rid of this trash and garbage and all this. And there's still one desk over there he's got to get rid of. Outside, he's done a great job. I like how he's thinking, but we've got to be realistic. I think, and I'm probably an earshot of the cleaning people, I don't think they do a good job. I think they miss everything. I don't like their lack of vacuuming. The list goes on, because I don't think we've got a good service here. We don't. And I'd rather try to fix that problem than put more on the one person that we have, Joe, who does a great job. You know how when you walk in the front of City Hall, that was all Joe. I asked him, I said, Joe, we got people cutting across here. It looks crappy. I've heard nothing but excuses about plantings. He's like, I got an idea. I said, hear it. And he did it. That's all Joe. So I like Joe doing what Joe does. And he's now taking on the same battle I am with all the crap downstairs and all the boxes of irrelevant garbage that's been here forever. For decades ago, different administrations, it needs to go. And, you know, it needs to go. But I'd like to see Joe in that role and not necessarily take on another cleaning role, because he also has been an employee of over 20 years. He's got a lot of time off, And would we then expect that person to sub in and do the same cleaning and same everything that he's doing? I'd like to just pump the brakes on that and perhaps look for another, let's get a bid out there for a cleaning service. Other municipalities do it. There's the library that we have to follow up on because they've got 2 part-timers there that maybe we could, bring over and maybe we cover with some sort of cost share. But there's got to be another way than going down the $7 an hour increase and then still cover when he's not here. I yield.
So with,
Oh,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so would one idea then be to take that right out of the, start at that number being 20, and then send it out for bid, and then see where we come in after the fact?
You
That's
mean
what- that's what
because
makes the most
we
sense.
pay 34,000 right now, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and there's 14 is the 5% cut, so you drop that off of there, so you got
Yep.
20 in there, and then we go out for bid, and then see where things fall. Is that
Yep.
the thought?
That would be my recommendation would be to bid it out or just put out an RFP for a new service at this point. To your point, Mayor, I know he does a great job, but we know how much the previous Joe struggled with getting things done, with only having one person. I would hate for us to be paying additionally for him to then be cleaning every night as well. So, go ahead.
So I know this is gonna go over not well. A lot of employers, mine currently, you do your own cleaning. You clean up your own space.
that's how I feel now.
Recommend that too. I mean, we all have homes.
You use it, you pick up after yourself. There is like an annual deep clean that's farmed out. I don't know that that would be realistic for City Hall with bathrooms and,
Oh no, that's got to be.
yeah, that, the bathrooms in the main area would have to be, but maybe instead of having every room cleaned on a regular basis, I don't know if that's how it's done or how regular is defined, but scale back also what is treated daily.
Yeah, some won't put, like if you have a garbage can in your office, you're required to go dump it in the main ones out, but the offices. Because when you get to the RFP, if you go to that, it lowers the.
And that's a reasonable ask. I just think that if you're going to vacuum once a week, bathrooms daily. All these things that we, this is, people come in here, it's such a busy place, but I could see to your point, yeah, I have a problem taking my garbage up, but don't bill me,
Right.
charge me for what you're not doing,
Correct.
and especially the vacuuming, that's just, I don't know, Madam Clerk, any comments on that?
Well, they're supposed to vacuum. Their department. This crew they have not better than get a dust bunny.
You named it.
Did it
To
multiply?
clean that up, and the owner came around and asked something, and we got this dust bunny. And he got rid of that crew.
Going to what you were saying about the library, they also had dust-free that got eliminated out of their last budget, and that has been a net positive across the board, where their sundry contract dollars drops as far as it goes, but then the overall cleanliness has been picked up as well.
So you got 2 part-timers there, right? I know one for sure,
I believe it's because they have the one part-timer.
Mark.
So to Alderwoman Day's point of like, just because it's been, that's just the way it was, that's the way it has been, doesn't mean it has to be. And that
And we've had this
current
company
structure.
for 3 years now. They only require a 30-day written notice. Hurt for us to look at providing.
And to the alderman's point, maybe we could look at some of that stuff for the office part where you take your own stuff out. And we could pick through this and then make it the way, but there's certain things that are non-negotiable, like bathrooms every day, certain things. But yeah, in here, when's the last time this has been mopped, swept? I don't think ever, but, really, this is not, I've never seen them put a mop on it. I've never seen anybody put a machine to it. I mean, it's, certain places used to really, this building used to pop. As the former mayor sitting here, it was nice wax put on the floors. You walked in, it was really, it popped, and I don't think it does anything.
So I think the consensus then on the building department is let's move forward with rebid or taking out a bid and RFP and leaving Joe to do what Joe does best.
And speak with the library.
Yes, yeah. Oh, right. Okay. Inspections. I know that Paul had brought it up when he was here speaking. This has been a discussion that has been had multiple times about continuing to fill the plumbing inspector's position. That way it's available, the funding is there if and when Justin decides to retire, who is currently doing it. However, I think we're kind of at the point that time frame may be at least another 5 years out, that if we're looking to cut, we're cutting that position and seeing what it looks like. So we reduced that, and then the couple other cuts that he did out of his non-personnel budget. Engineering, the request was to remove or freeze the 0.5 FTE and then also one tech position. Right now we have 2. However, we have one retiring, I think, fairly soon, within the next year. So that overall staff freeze, reduced their overall budget by $150,000. But my discussion wanted to be around that 0.5 FTE and just eliminating that altogether. They currently have one FTE admin assistant. That person had previously had half of her time coming out of the general fund and out of the engineering fund, half of her time coming out of water and sewer, because she was kind of the backup for the utility clerk. There has been discussions between superintendent for water and sewer and then DPW and how those 2 admin assistants are kind of helping each other out, and the engineering one is no longer needed. So the request was to put that full FTE back in the engineering department. She works 100% for engineering, not for any other department. So does that department really need an additional 0.5 FTE? I don't think so. So I think freezing it in 2026 is fine, but my recommendation would be to avoid it altogether, especially if we have Grafe at the moment. They have a lot of their own admins that are working as well. So that was my recommendation for that.
We talked about that today with some people, Rafe and Kevin Schleter, and it makes sense. At least freeze it for next year to see how that works, and then we go to elimination. Either way, we're saving the money, but.
And I just think I don't think Christine was the backup, Debbie, but they were always, one was always offsetting the other because one was in another department, or I've just heard from that department that they've never needed more than one admin assistant down there, especially if she's going to be having her full 40 hours down there now.
And moving to appointment only.
Yes, we did discuss that.
That is a big change that hasn't been done ever. It's you come in here with a bunch of stuff, go downstairs, pound on the door, and someone's there to serve you. The more efficient way to do it is, hi, ma'am, sir, we like to, you'll get an appointment when it works for you. And then we make it that way, and that way it's much more efficient.
Yeah, so that has been something we discussed too, about potentially implementing January 1 as engineering turning to appointment only. DPW had a reduction in their staff. The recommendation was to reduce and freeze I keep saying reduce, but it's to freeze the assistant superintendent position for the entire year, and also freeze the vacant light equipment operator for 10 months, which would reduce their overall budget by $187,000. A couple of questions, and I would like a little direction on this one, is all of the conversations I've heard are, we don't have enough staff. Freezing those positions concerns me when it comes to, like Paul brought up, snowplow routes. Change the snowplow routes. Can DPW work any more efficiently to where we're not going to have any sort of reduction in service by freezing those 2%? Not sure that's a kind of an open-ended question and maybe more for some internal staff talking about it. But that I was just a little concerned at seeing those 2 reductions out of that department when we have how many projects going on right now, upcoming trails and trails, sidewalk, all of these maintenance by DPW services and projects that are going on, and not having those positions filled. So I don't know if there's any discussion you want to have around that, or just kind of leave it at that may be an area that we might be able to inject some additional funding back in.
Are those positions vacant now or anticipated vacancies for retirements?
Vacant.
They're both vacant right now. The request or the recommendation was to have a couple other operators do the duties of the assistant superintendent until we are able to fund it again.
How long have these positions been vacant?
Oh, Mayor, I'm not sure. When Rich left
Yeah.
probably about 3 months ago, and then the
So-
other one I'm not sure.
So okay, this is kind of like one of those shell games. So you started off with just, I believe, 3 basic DPW workers. Then they hired one, but then Rich left. And then one more left and went to We Energies. Then we hired another one, and that one just got out of DOT school. So the openings right now, I believe, is Rich, which is a DPW number 2. And I think there's 2 more DPW openings right now. But Kevin's good with holding some of them open. But I green lighted him and told him, if you got to fill them because the winter bug's coming. And we're freaking out about that because what we don't want is to have that shortage. So it's, to Courtney's point earlier, it's letting the department head determine their needs. And I don't know what he needs. He knows what he needs. So we'll just help implement what he needs. So I think you appreciate the shell game thing because the numbers were changing so much. But he can. We offered it up to him to fill it to number 2. So he's doing what he feels right now is in a priority what he needs to fill. And Danielle, I believe when Kevin was talking, I thought it was an operator like right away, and then perhaps keeping one open. But it's still, it's dangerous. But again, we're able to, not only is this 550 up here now, hopefully we're going to be able to walk some of this back Q after Q1, Q2 as the year goes on. But I just know that all of us are thinking, snow, and it's no joke.
I like it.
Is there, I don't know, but is there ability to contract if necessary? So
I don't know that answer.
That might give you an option if you kind of get into something or whatever to get through that period of time.
I don't know if other jurisdictions do that for insurance purposes. I don't know. I don't know that answer offhand, but it's something that could be looked at because if anything can be privatized, maybe that. I just want to make sure that if they damage something, how was that covered?
And I'm not saying the whole thing. I'm saying
but I'm saying they take North Cape Road.
Yeah,
and they knock out 10 of our mailboxes. Who pays for that? How's that
correct.
covered? So I mean, I don't want to poo-poo it, but they're like for lawn cutting. That's been proposed and maybe implemented after Q2 next year, because you can get somebody to cheaply cut lawn. I mean, some of these lawnmowers we have are $50,000. So anyway,
Is it possible, on the back page here, looks like with the numbers that, we have over $500,000. How much of that can we, if these numbers hold true on top, how much of that can we sort of hold unallocated to something right now so that if there is a pinch with DPW or maybe one of these other organizations or departments that are freezing positions, that they could come back and ask for, that adjustment then, but then we have the money. If we can do that, I'd rather see it held for personnel emergencies to fill vacancies than to put it back into some of these like operational, like small bucket items. I think manpower is most important. So if whatever we can hold on to and, maybe give that ray of sunshine to the department heads that, you know, there is some money that if something, you know, happens and there's really need to fill something that you froze, there might be a path forward for that.
Well, DPW is my number one on my wish list. That's where we are not only understaffed, underfunded,
Yeah.
and now
Yeah,
vacant.
I mean, I want to give, you know, Kevin the benefit of the doubt, but if he thinks that he can make it go like this, you know, not to be like, well, we think that you really do need this.
No, he's
So,
Kevin is outstanding
Yeah.
department head, as you know, and those that don't know him get to know him. And he's a lifelong Franklin resident as well. He's trying to do everything personally too, his sacrifices to make it work. I mean, he's really taken it. He really takes this personal, and he's like, I'm doing everything I can to make this city work. I mean, he's a great guy.
So one recommendation that I did not put up here, but obviously would be that we can do is similar, we can just throw, I don't want to say create a policy, but we can absolutely implement something in the overall budget ordinance for this year only around this, but some sort of taking that excess and maybe putting a dollar amount to it and just throwing it in our overall unrestricted contingency, and then saying, you know, it's got to come obviously before the council. If it's needed, a justification. It's only for personnel, not non-personnel items. So we can kind of talk about and tweak that so that it's in a budget ordinance that this is what it's used for. This is what is needed in order to use it.
So I'm used to that kind of model of everybody cuts down, right? And then you get into the year, and then you figure out, because there's going to be things that come up, and you kind of adjust, right? I mean, I'm all for that. I would be careful on putting too much restriction, since it has to come to the council anyways, on what it can be used for. Because I don't want to be in a position where all of a sudden we need to use it for something that's not, and all of a sudden we're
right.
stuck, right? So, but I'm all for that, and the idea being is anything, right? What you think is going to happen, and then what actually happens ends up being two different things. So giving us some variability there to know going in that we have some I'd call them levers to pull that we can adjust as we need to. Makes a lot of sense to me.
And like every other budget amendment, it is required to the council by state statute. So you're going to see it anyways, right? So
Yep, no surprises.
Did we ever price out the proposal for the spouses on health insurance?
not yet.
Why not?
We haven't had a meeting yet. We only meet with them once a month,
Why do
once
you
every
need a
2 months.
meeting? Get the rates and make the calculation. Not that hard.
Okay, we'll get working on it.
Well, yeah, you can request it through her. You don't want my math, so we'll go through her and how they want to do it. And no, I agree with you.
It's big money.
And we have, I mean, the
Potentially
last
it
time
is.
we had a meeting with them, with our insurance
I know Kelly
brokers.
doesn't like it, but
No, the last meeting that we had was October 2nd, which was right after the finance meeting, and that was discussed. And they were doing the disruption testing, and they were putting all those numbers and stuff together for us. We are meeting with them again. But anyway, so I promise you it has been discussed. They're doing all of the legwork for us to figure those reports out. Okay.
makes a lot more sense than doing all this nickel and dime on each department. Anyway,
Explain what you mean by that. Well, I guess I explain what you mean.
well, all these small investments. You got $100,000 sitting on things.
I would look at it as an and.
Huh?
I would look at it at that as an and. Like it would add to
Yeah.
that pool as opposed to instead of something.
I
I mean,
agree.
eventually it'll be instead of something because
Yep.
you might need it, right? But,
It's worth running the numbers.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Right.
Figuring it out.
Absolutely.
Okay, so then the next one is health. I questioned, is this sustainable? And the response was, take my 40 whatever thousand dollars out of my medical supplies, and we're gonna try and look for grants and other ways to
What are your
supplement.
thoughts?
But
That's not what I thought she would do. But again, I don't want to second guess where she's coming from. She knows what their numbers are for clinics more than I do. That line item is basically flu shots. So all the supplies associated with that, so syringes, Band-Aids, alcohol wipes, gloves, all of that, plus then the vaccine. Some of that you get back because obviously we have to buy the vaccine in advance as the city, and then you can then charge insurance for that. So I was looking at their line item here, so they're basically kind of wiping it out. So your questions here, I don't know. I don't know where else you would get the money to buy the vaccine from. I don't know if their plan is to just go a year without doing a big flu clinic, or I don't know.
And I think my comments were more, like I said, probably internal. These were like my notes, and I'm like, I'm just gonna print it so we can talk about it. Like I said, what if she can't find grants to support the vaccine or the supplies? Then should we quit giving flu shots for a year, or start charging
We do
the
bill-
residents?
We do bill for the.
We do, correct, but I don't know how much we get back for. If maybe do we get 100% back of what we bill for the shots?
So we get, they generally only do senior vaccine now. There's very little, if any, like straight pay vaccine for like private insurance. They do not charge an administrative fee, I don't believe. So it's just the straight up cost for the vaccine. So it's usually a wash. But yeah.
So
There's no money made by the city for it, and then we bill Medicare for their portion of it.
But to the point then I think that I made earlier, we probably should put that back to what it is, because even if we get the revenue incoming, we know, I think it was like $30-something thousand in flu shots last year, and it's only gonna have $2,000 in that budget. That's not realistic.
What I would suggest, I would look at that line item over maybe like the last 4 or 5 years, kind of find an average of what that looks like. Maybe reduce that line item from the 45 down to whatever that is, and then if inspections is truly looking at fees, I don't think the Board of Health has been looked at since 20 maybe. So there's probably gains had there with their fees as well to bring in revenue to offset maybe some of this, like we're doing with some other departments. I would also argue that, again, this is small potatoes, but I would argue that their lines for like conferences, travel, and a lot of that, most of that is grant fundable. So I don't know that you need levy dollars for that when you can use the grants for it. So that's small amounts, but there's other gains had there rather than wiping out the.
I think the request maybe that I'm hearing is go back to the department head and kind of explain what we talked about here, and then maybe see if she can look at producing anything else instead that she may be able to get grant funding for.
Yeah,
or
you could get grant
just
funding for some of the
not
other
do
stuff
it for this
easier
year.
than the vaccine. And I know that a lot of seniors, 300 to 500 every year, count on that one clinic. So I would hate for that to go away.
Right, agreed. Can I ask a question to
Yep.
Courtney one day? This was brought up just by one senior, and I've been meaning to ask you this question, but I also, Lauren's been gone every time I've been here. Is there any chance of having the flu shots being offered at the first Wednesday senior lunch at River? Is that something that could happen?
I think it's possible. They have all the like equipment to transport vaccines.
Is
We
it
have
a
to get
big
all of
deal?
that for flu shots. Not really. it's just a matter of having a space that they can set up, you know, a couple of tables like this with, you know, kind of out of the way of everything, but.
Yeah, it
otherwise,
would be in the
definitely.
room next to where the lunch is held. It was just I mean, last month it was like 130 seniors.
Yeah.
And as we go forward, it was one of the things that were brought up. Just wondering, because that would be
Yeah.
great to implement that.
Yeah, that's, I don't want to speak for Lauren, but.
And it's
not-
private.
It's not a heavy lift at all. Those types of things.
I know it's weird, but thank you.
Got just a couple more, so planning. I think, one of their requests was to eliminate the planning intern and then reduce, Nick's time, who is the part-time planner, who also works for another municipality, and that is where they got their reduction from.
Can I ask a question on the intern? So, for a planning intern, do we end up ever hiring them?
Yes. We have had a few over the last few years. The one that we just had offered him the open full-time position, turned down. So we hired outside and we have not filled that any interns then, and that's back in.
There was a young lady that we couldn't get because she was offered stupid money somewhere else. And
Intern?
yeah, she was graduating to her master's, and we wanted her.
Yeah.
Well, no, it was a female.
Oh, that was the previous one, the one that we just,
This was a year and a half ago. The year in question.
And how much is because I'm figuring the intern is not much of the salary. I'm guessing there's no benefits.
there's no benefits. 2025, it costed the city $10,000. It'd be a tiny bit, it'd be about $11,000 for 2026.
And the only reason I bring it up is I know that it may not be here yet, but it has been an effective way to get people in because it gives you an opportunity to work with somebody and kind of gets a vetting of them. They get to kind of get some experience here. It doesn't cost us a huge amount of money, but and then the other way to look at it is when you hire in, you're hiring in at the bottom. You're not hiring at a level. So, especially in areas where sometimes it's hard to get. So.
And now we just hired a planner, Rose, and that's what we hope now we'll be able to reduce Nick Fuchs's part-time stuff because we have a full-timer.
Yeah.
So that only made sense. Now, we lose a regular planner, then we bring, because I don't want to eliminate Nick Fuchs. He'll be greatly cut because Rose, once she's good to go. So, but that's how that came about. So hopefully that, in theory, works.
And how does that intern work? Do we have a relationship with, is that an open that interns apply for, or do we have some sort of relationship with
That's a good question. I think it is posted, but I think we do have some connection.
So the other thing I'd bring up is if you do have one that's been around for a little while and then you close it, it's hard sometimes when you open them back up again because people won't apply because they look at you as, well, sometimes you have it, sometimes you don't, that kind of stuff. So if you have one and it's established and it's working,
right,
that pipeline will continue. The problem is if you close it, it
makes
sometimes
sense.
makes it really hard to get back.
And I would almost maybe go back to Aguilo. He references in his memo here, if excess funds become available, the priorities are the part-time and then the intern. I would reverse those. I think the intern is more useful. I think the intern is more important for a lot of what Alderman Peccarelli just said, but also recruiting somebody part-time municipal is hard, considering what private companies can pay. So you'd be here making less money, not have benefits. Where if you get an intern, they're not necessarily here right out of the gate for all the money and the benefits and whatnot. They're here for the experiences. Hopefully, you draw them in that way. So I would maybe have, if funds are available and they ask for any back in.
Got that. And then I have economic one-man show, so his budget was reducing professional services, sundry contractors, and marketing. A lot of that was based on historical spend, so.
And $10 in printing.
Yeah, he just wanted to get to that number. So I think his department is running just fine, and he's able to, he said he's able to work with what proposed. So the two final ones that we have not discussed are obviously police and fire. So police first, they froze 3 patrol officers and 1 community service officer, as well as 1 dispatch position. There has been some discussion since this memo has went out, or since right before this memo went out, which the mayor gave authorization for chief to hire a lateral position for a patrol officer, which did reduce his overall reduction amount, but still remained within a relatively close amount. So right now the proposal is 2 patrol officers, 1 service officer, and 1 dispatch, as well as some material non-personnel expenses. And then fire proposed a couple of different options, which we can discuss. What we put in the budget was option 2. But option 1 was they have 3 vacancies, 2 starting January 1, 1 starting February 3rd. Option 1 is to fill all of them by April 1st. Option 2 is to fill 1 by April 1st and fill 2 by August 1st. Option 3 was to fill all of them August 1st. And the final request was, I know the council and finance committee recommended reducing the overtime budget by $50,000 based on historical spending. He has asked that we inject $40,000 back in to the overtime budget, especially with having these different options, having open positions going unfilled for a period of time. So we can discuss those 2, but I just wanted to point out that we do and should discuss the whole maintenance of effort certification that the city needs in order to keep receiving our state aid, and what type of penalty that'll look like.
Explain that, please.
I did here, but why don't we just go with the questions first? Police and fire, if there's any, what they proposed.
Well, I have one just in case for those that would be listening at home what that meant, what you said. So, the staffing component for police start. Okay? If I'm listening at home and I'm wondering, well, what does that mean if you don't fill positions opposed to eliminate positions? What type of state aid is then in jeopardy? So, if we were to say, chief, police chief, we would look to eliminate those officer positions. Eliminate. Now, what kind of fiscal impact, negative from the state with that, you believe? I know it's a round number, but what do you think it to be? I know we talked earlier about it, so I'm not whacking her too much, but it was.
I had it up. So
Yeah, I thought it was like 170 grand or something like
it's
that.
a little bit more, but ultimately, there's a 15% penalty to your overall total state shared revenue. So for us, that would be, it would not take effect until 2028 payment. But that is $225,000 today. Obviously, our state share revenue will go up, so it's at that time. So ultimately, what we filed for 2025, it's got to be filed by July 1st, 2025. That was looking at the staffing from all of 24 and comparing it to 2023, and it has to be the same or above. And for police, it's full-time equivalent law enforcement officers, and they only consider positions that are actually filled in that calculation. And then there's a whole calculation form that the police chief does to determine if you're at the same level or above. And that affects your 2026. So thinking about your budget year 2026, which is why I put it on here, you would be comparing it to 2025. It would be based on the actual positions filled. You would file that in 2027, essentially not meet that criteria, it would affect 15% penalty, 8 shared revenue.
So does, if we have open positions and we can't fill them, that could also kick in?
Repeat that?
So if we had open positions, we don't freeze them, we just have them posted and we just can't get people, does that also then kick in?
It does, because like I said, I almost want to have a meeting just around that because it's so, and maybe the chief can speak to it a little bit. There's like this whole calculation that they go like month by month. It's an average or something, how many FTEs were filled from month to month, and that's how they compare it to the previous year.
And have we ever been fully staffed?
Fire has.
Fire has?
Fire has.
Police has not.
Understandably.
Yeah.
Well, this just started in 2023, so.
Oh, this calculation?
Yeah,
Okay.
the supplemental aid kicked in 2024, essentially is when we got our first payment.
Okay.
But, and I think I wrote here on letter D, so if we don't meet the requirements in 2026 budget, file for 2027, so the following year, for 2027, we either have to, we compare our levels to the last certification, which would be 2026, or go back to 2023's levels when it was initially implemented, whatever is the one that we compare. So the most recent year that we complied. We complied in 2025, but didn't comply in 2026. When we go into the 2027 budget year, we have to be at the same level, if not above, as the 5-year when we were last certified.
That's kind of far.
Right, so I'm thinking that maybe at some point, maybe after the first of the year, either ask Chief Mayor to bring in the calculations, kind of go through how all that is calculated and determine if we want to inject some of that unrestricted contingency funding back into some of these officers so that we don't end up reducing our aid by $250,000 potentially in 2028.
Right, because we just kicked.
Because I don't know what 2025 looks like, right? We've had all these vacancies, so it may not be as impactful as we think it is by freezing a couple positions because we've had so much vacancy in 2025. So what are we really comparing 2020?
And when you say freeze here, if it takes us, just hypothetically, it takes us 12 months to hire somebody, even if it's not frozen, it looks like it because it means that that position was open.
Well, and like I said, if you think the police have to meet one criteria, number of full equivalent law enforcement officers, only consider positions that are actually filled. So if the criteria means that all the positions that were actually filled, what those timelines look like compared to the previous year, like I said, we may not be in as bad of shape. We just need to talk to and find out what the numbers looked like in 23 that were certified, what we were at in 24, where we're at in 25, how that may affect 26. Because like I said, with 25 vacancies, it may not be as bad.
From the fire end, I'm not familiar with the law enforcement. From the fire end, there's 4 criteria. It's staffing, overall expenditures for fire and EMS is the second criteria. Third is level of service. We're looking at communities, did they maybe have paramedic service, but then they drop to a EMT basic type service. That's the third criteria. And the fourth is response times. And for fire, you have to meet at least 3 out of the 4 in order to qualify for the shared revenue.
So do they have, for response time, is there a metric you have to meet, or is it baselined off of yourself, or how does that?
You have to come up with your own data for your response area and just show a consistent mechanism of evaluating it from year to year. Kind of put the onus on the jurisdiction to evaluate the response time.
But just not to change the math base to get you to the number you want.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say as far as reporting, it seems, to your point, it seems fairly simple is a good way to put it. I mean, it's essentially just marking a couple boxes saying that you complied and a signature. And I often wonder at what point is the Department of Revenue going to come in and say, show me all your calculations, right? Because everybody's going to say we complied. So I know that you guys are doing an incredible job keeping your data in line, but I just, like I said, there's nothing that I attach when I submit the annual report. It's just, yep, that they provided theirs, they certified it, I'm filing it, and that's it. So you never want to run the risk, right? So, that was the main part of discussion for the police and fire is, you have that extra that we do think about when we are discussing freezing, eliminating out of those departments. So
Yes, Danielle, for the fire, as Danielle mentioned, we have 3 vacancies, which we had not had in several years, that we are able to manipulate to show some savings. And Danielle had recommended option 2, which is palatable because it does help us bring an additional person on board in April for the academy class. And it also keeps our community paramedic program moving forward. If we were not able to do that hire in April, there's a good chance that that program would derail. And there's some grant funding and some real benefits that are associated with it. So the option 2 is palatable. The overtime discussion, the basis for the increasing or restoring some of the overtime, we do have a member who is part of the Air Force National Guard who is slated for a 6-month deployment in 2026. And additionally, I'm also aware of 2 of our other employees will have extended family leaves due to birth of a child. So, and this is 2 months before 2026 even begins. And kind of how that falls in is when there are vacancies for people being off for family leave and the guard deployment. In order to maintain 11 people in the fire stations each day, I have to hire back off-duty people to fill those vacancies. That's where our overtime budget gets used. For 2025, for this year, we are fully staffed. We had very few long-term leaves. We had a really good year for overtime. We didn't have a lot of spending, but already looking in the crystal ball for 2026, I can tell right now by those 3 long-term vacancies, if we don't restore some of that, I'll probably be right back before the council, probably in March or April. And hey, we have a red flag, so it's probably better, in my opinion, just to switch it back or allow some additional funding now.
Can I ask? So there's option in here to fill them all in April. There's an option in here which is a staggered one they talked about. Then there's one that's all of August. What about if you filled 2 of them in April or I don't know, earlier or whatever? Like, how does that affect your overtime?
Sure.
And because we're spending money one way or the other way,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah, it's kind of a shell game. And you are correct. If we filled 2 in April, we could probably we would have a little bit less overtime spending as well. But
I would rather since we know we have to hire there, I'd rather pull that forward and try to hold on the overtime as much as possible and just kind of see how things settle out.
that would be palatable.
if that's the recommendation, I can work on putting the overall. So shifting option 2 to be filled 2 in April, 1 in August.
Okay, so where are we here?
So overall, if there's no other questions about the budget reductions, no more discussion, I think we can just kind of throw one big recommendation together. I would like to get it in front of the council on November 4th, because that is the final meeting prior to budget adoption on the 11th. And just get their flavor, be able to get it in, because I have to have that full budget book done by the next couple of days after. So the more that we can recommend and get in there now, I think I can just write down. So let me just go through this so I don't. So
How about
go
the
ahead.
dates for the
Yes,
fee
do we
raise?
want to get specific dates and hold, I guess, the court fees and the fee schedule? We want them implemented by January 1. So do
Yes.
we want?
Yes.
You gotta go
Absolutely.
backwards then off of that to get to
Correct.
when it's gotta
So
be.
it's
the
gotta
council.
be-
Judges
ordinance.
almost got it done, so hers should be pretty simple.
It's gotta come to finance first, right?
No,
No.
or to
So
council.
we can just go right to council?
Yes, sir.
Does that need a public hearing if it's an ordinance? I think it does. So we've got to,
Shirley, what are your thoughts? I don't,
or just publish?
it's published, not a hearing.
Okay.
So who's gonna show up and say
So
yes?
if we change the fee schedule, or bring an ordinance forward, it can just go right to the council. It doesn't require. So December 2nd or December 16th are the two council meetings.
I think we target the first one just in case we have something that has to get to the second one, so we still have time to get it in.
So it need to be submitted to council by 12. Got it. Okay. My other recommendation was, like I said, keep the plumbing inspector out of the budget until further notice. Everybody okay with that? The point we talked about earlier, I said freeze all mid-year raises for 2026. And Mira, to your point, Kelly and I will work on getting that policy forward that for the time being with budget constraints, there's going to be something in place that we appreciate our staff. However, any increases come at budget time, implemented January 1. I think talking about number 5, we can cross out number 5 and just kind of recommend that we go back to the planning department and have that discussion about the planning intern versus the part-timer. So the other recommendations I have are, let me see, recommendation to either bid or RFP a new cleaning service, but for right now, we're just gonna leave that budget as is. Or we're gonna reduce it to 20. That's, okay, so let me. Eliminate the 0.5 FTE out of the engineering admin assistant. Put the medical supplies back in at an average. I don't know if we want to say what that amount is going to be. For medical supplies,
I would go from,
I mean, I can just
I would
tell
go
you.
from 2021 forward. COVID's going to be a weird year. And a lot of things changed with how providers give vaccines after COVID. There's a lot more places that do it. So I would go 2020. And if they can get you the numbers from last month.
42,004. So, and that's why I said between 30 and 50 is where it's average. So we'll just put whatever the average is from 2021 forward. We'll put that back into the health medical supplies. But are you requesting that she reduce anything else?
Not necessarily. I'm just
Okay.
saying there's other places, I think,
Yep.
if they need to make cuts that are easier to offset with grants
Got it. And we just
than
make that
the
recommendation,
vaccine and vaccine supplies. Because that IMSS grant is really restrictive and small.
Okay. And then the only other one that I think I have is the adjusting option 2 to fill the 2 positions that go in 1 in August.
So the other one I had was your 2 that you marked as unrealistic in the clerk.
Putting those back.
We get the revenue.
Okay.
Can
And then-
anything be done about the newsletter?
We can certainly reduce the newsletter budget and then just have, I guess, I don't want to say force, but
I'd
require
like to have council
Kelly.
discuss that, about making that, at least the minimum
Yeah.
point would be the stoppage. To say, we're no longer mailing them out. They can still produce them, but work on it for next year, because Lauren, with her guidance, it could really dress it up, but to your point,
Do we want to
Could
keep
it-
it in
could
the
it-
budget but have that discussion and know that it'll just hopefully have, we won't have as much expenditures out of that line by the end of the year. We'll know that by implementing change that,
Can we cut it by
what was it, 25,000? We can,
cut it by a fourth with the idea of you're trying to do something, and as the year goes on.
yeah, I think the council
Yeah.
to discuss this in open session about how this newsletter should be done moving forward with the costs and put it out there, because as long as the seniors are delivered ones without being mailed, I think that's gonna be a big deal.
And then post it on a website or something.
Yes.
So-
May I ask how that would be determined? Are you talking about like convalescent centers and such? Or are you talking about a senior resident?
Just, well, what I'm talking about is you would be dropping them off, like we would have a big stack down here for the senior lunch. That first Wednesday would have the senior lunch, and then they'd be here at City Hall. And that's where, that's, in my opinion, that's where they would be kept. No, there'd be no delivery route person, you know, no.
I know this is a few years old, but the health department, I believe in 2021, did a sampling survey of the entire city, and one of the questions was about how they wanted to get their information, and part of the questions was about the newsletter, and it's not what it was surprising. So, I mean, there is some data from a few years ago about how people were saying they wanted to get that information. So it does exist out there for, you know, if we make a change, that there is some data from a few years ago, and I would think it would be slanted more in that direction, that more people wanted it. A more timely mechanism of getting things rather than the printed version. By the time we got it.
Yeah, to have something like social media, I know that there was a discussion about it, but I think a lot of people get their information, if it's not on the website, or at least on social media, because to the mayor's point, in terms of having like those ribbon cutting ceremonies, I mean, it's powerful to have community members present at those events. So I would say that, and if people don't know about it until after it happens, it's kind of, what's the point of having the newsletter? In my opinion. And also, I would say maybe drop it off at the library, the senior centers, and here. Or the
Library for sure.
Yeah.
I forgot that library.
Yeah.
I reduce that, or I will reduce by 25%.
Or just use the free money from the school and have them printed, and then don't have any postage, and then use that rest of the funds for either the electronic way to do it, but you're going to be getting your news, and that's going to be like a big reduction.
Request, the newsletter is kind of deep in the website. Could there be a button on the main page?
It says newsletter. Bloop. Like where they go. Yeah. All with the sound effect.
I will
That's how
mark
the
that down
internet
because
works.
I'll have Lisa do that tomorrow.
And Al Gore designed it that way.
Okay, so is there any other
And then
recommended changes?
and then the differential, that pool that you're building up.
Putting that, whatever's left over after I do these
Yep.
changes, we're just gonna put that in under a unrestricted contingency.
Can I ask one question before we adjourn? So, the reason why I was late tonight is I was next door at the library for the Putes Road Path Citizen First Feedback Meeting. And one of the things that I didn't expect, which I heard a lot of, was not North Side Street versus South Side Street, but, well, what if we don't do it at all? What happens? Because I was explaining that there's a grant and that there's park impact fees used to cover the shortfall of the grant, and I'm thinking double thumbs up and everybody's excited. No. And it's like, well, now what? So is that something that, let's say this doesn't move forward, would that have any negative fiscal impact to our budget next year?
No.
Good answer. Good. All right, I'm good with it.
We
Motion
just don't
adjourned.
get the grant, but we don't spend any capital funding, you don't get your pathway. You don't have to
I mean,
borrow
it was a
for it.
packed house. It was packed. That's why
The
I
only
think you're
thing
late.
that I would think we would have had to think about is the park impact fee piece
Right.
of it, right? Because you have to spend them in so much time. However, we just had a meeting, Marion, myself, Kevin, Glenn, Mike, about the projects coming up along with the park impact fees that we have. And we have more than enough projects coming up to completely wipe out our park impact fees, so we don't run the risk of
Good.
having to rebate them. So, and this was kind of a small portion. after the grant, it was maybe 200,000 versus some of the couple $1 million projects that we have. So if we had a rebate concern, I would probably say, no, we're gonna do it, right? If we hadn't seen
All right.
those parking
Thank
packages,
you.
but no.
Well, this 5% reduction plan is not gonna work next year.
Something's gotta get.
Well, everybody's told everybody reduce it 5%, they're gonna put that right in their budget.
Okay, so I have the recommended changes down. I will input them and then come forward to the council on the 4th with what we discussed. The budget adoption will be the 11th, so whoever's not on the council, if you want to attend the budget or the adoption public hearing on the 11th. Otherwise, if you have any concerns, please reach out to me prior and we can discuss it. There's a couple items for the next finance committee meeting. What Brian and John were talking about tonight, there's some tweaks to the investment policies that they are proposing as well. It just kind of gives them a little bit more flexibility to move around our assets. So I will be bringing that forward, and they will also be here again to kind of go over those at the next meeting. The Q2, Q3 financials, I probably won't bring forward the debt planning until the January meeting. I know we have to have some further discussion about a couple of the projects, and then bid planning as well. I want to bring that forward to the next meeting, knowing that we have some potential developments coming up and just an overall discussion at where our TIDs are at now. Joint Review Board will be meeting December 10th. Would actually put us in a good position to have all of those bid financials to present to the Finance Committee on the 23rd or whatever day that is of December.
Okay, so
I-
Other than
I
that,
have one more question. real
Yeah.
quick. On the police line, there was a asterisk on it, and it said something to the effect of, is one of the positions that's in the 3 for the, I can't remember what they call it. In the
Accreditation?
school? No, with the school, there's like 70% of the school district doesn't cover that
no,
position.
the
That's
school
not-
resource
Not any of
officer.
the freeze.
No.
Okay, all right, that's all I want to know.
No, and the only reason the asterisk was there is because, like I said, I combined the police and the dispatch
Yeah,
funding, which totaled 586, but the original one I forgot to put the dispatch reduction
Okay.
in there, so that's all that it was.
Okay.
Thank you. We need a motion to approve all these recommendations.
Yes, please.
Okay, somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve all the recommendations made that went through there. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried.
One point of clarification, you said for the future, are you gonna bring back, Danielle, the mid-year increase policy that you're working on?
Yes, I will. You want that the next meeting or the next meeting? Okay,
Because I was actually, you have freeze it for 26.
correct. Yep.
I
so
was thinking eliminate, like forever.
I see what you're saying. Yep. No, well, because I think that was kind of how it used to be. I hate that phrase, but kind of how it used to be. And then over the last few years, it's kind of like all these people kind of flooded at once, wanting raises. They got them, and I want to put a stop to that too. It's just at budget time. So you're right. Instead of freeze, it'll be eliminate with that policy.
Makes sense.
Okay, if there's no further business, I'll take a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned.
It was Hansen.